In Oldham, where they're currently doing a investigation.
Billington.
No, I am not going to finish. You've allowed that to go on. So in Oldham, they have
Councillor
had
Billington,
502 cases in the last 10 years.
Before we dive into one of the most shocking and controversial stories surrounding child abuse exploitation in Oldham, we want to hear what you think is really going on behind the scenes. This case has sparked intense debate, with serious accusations, political clashes, and a fierce fight for justice. If you're keen to understand all the details and how this could affect public policy and child protection, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Don't miss any updates as we uncover the truths and the things that might not be getting the attention they deserve. Let's get into it.
Why are you sweeping it under the carpet? This isn't
We're not
about
sweeping
Oldham.
it under the carpet.
This isn't about Rotherham. This isn't about Rochdale. This is a national scandal. We need to connect the dots in order to understand. Without understanding, how can you gain any sort of justice for these victims, these young girls?
In the midst of heated discussions about child abuse exploitation in Oldham, Minister Jess Phillips spoke out on the issue, acknowledging the strong public sentiment that a new investigation should be carried out. In response to a request from the local council, she recognized the plea, but emphasized that it was ultimately up to local authorities to decide if an independent investigation was necessary. In her letters to the council's executive, Phillips apologized for the delayed response, but reaffirmed that the Oldham Council was responsible for making the final call on the investigation. She praised the council's continued efforts to work with victims and survivors, a stance that provoked strong reactions among those involved in the case.
I think that what I will not let happen is for the far right to use the exploitation of vulnerable girls in this country and what happened in Cologne for their own ends when they've done absolutely nothing about sexual violence and the culture of sexual assault until it fits their purpose.
Councillor Arooj Shah, leader of Oldham Council, responded to the mounting criticism and the situation in Oldham. He stated that since October, the council had been working hard to establish an independent investigation, collaborating directly with survivors and with Tameside Council, which had already conducted a similar investigation. Arooj Shah highlighted that the inquiry would be based on the findings of a previous study carried out by Greater Manchester on protection issues in Oldham, reiterating the council's commitment to ensuring victims had a voice in the process. According to Arooj Shah, the priority was to work closely with the affected families, so they could play a key role in shaping the investigation. However, tensions escalated further with remarks from Tameside Conservative Councillor Liam Billington. In a controversial video, Billington challenged Oldham Council's leaders, citing alarming statistics about child sexual exploitation in his own region. According to Billington, over 30 cases of child sexual exploitation were recorded in Tameside each quarter, which meant 120 victims annually. He pointed out that these figures were far higher than those in Oldham, where the investigation was underway, and criticized the lack of action and transparency from local authorities.
The figures that I have quoted are from a Tameside Council presentation. In that presentation, which some of the members were there, it states on slide 3, which I have already provided to the police, and it says on that slide that in excess of 30 cases of child sexual exploitation take place in Tameside every single quarter. So that means, take that every quarter, that means 120 children each year are victims of CSE. Okay? So, in Oldham, where they're currently doing a investigation.
Billington.
No, I am not going to finish. You've allowed that to go on. So in Oldham, they have
Councillor
had
Billington,
502 cases in the last 10 years.
For democratic
and in
services,
Tameside,
please
given
stop
those
the
figures,
webcast.
it's over 1,200, more than double. So that's where I got the information.
It's an utterly astonishing situation. That was Tameside Councillor Liam Billington, who was silenced in that meeting back in 2022. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined now.
The situation worsened when Billington revealed that his tweet regarding the Oldham investigation, which referenced the alarming data from Tameside, resulted in an aggressive response from the police. He claimed that after retweeting information about the case, he was visited by police following an anonymous complaint.
The police basically ignore people on CSE or child sexual exploitation. And I quote tweeted that and said, why isn't anyone talking about Tameside? Because the figures are there. The council did a presentation which stated that in excess of 30 children every quarter are victims of CSE. And
despite him insisting that he had done nothing wrong, this attempt at intimidation sparked even more criticism, with Billington accusing the authorities of trying to suppress the truth. He also reported that accusations made against him during a council meeting, suggesting that he was obstructing information about child grooming, were baseless and intended solely to damage his reputation. The case grew even more complex with the revelation of the involvement of Shabir Ahmed, a former security employee of Oldham Council. Ahmed was sentenced to 22 years in prison for his involvement in a child sexual abuse case in Rochdale, despite being paid by Oldham Council to protect children. This disclosure only added to the growing mistrust surrounding the council's actions and raised further questions about the effectiveness of previous investigations.
Because, again, there was no crime committed. You know, you look at, is it Alison Pearson from The Telegraph? And she was investigated for a non-hate crime. It very much felt like that, to be honest. And the police were trying to intimidate. But what was happening was, actually, it was all done in cahoots, because the following week there was a full council meeting, and because a colleague of mine, Councillor Arooj Welsh, wasn't able to come due to a family funeral, we then moved it to the following week, but that hadn't been passed to the Labour councillors, and they announced in the meeting that I was refusing to cooperate.
Amidst all this, Billington made a strong call for an independent investigation, free from political bias, to be conducted at a national level in order to clarify the facts and ensure that the truth was not hidden. He sharply criticised Labour Party leaders, stating that they had never called for an impartial investigation and had blocked attempts to thoroughly investigate the issue of child sexual exploitation while in control of the council. Billington argued that recent leadership changes in the council, which resulted in the departure of 3 leaders, had paved the way for the current discussion, but also showed that Oldham Council was aware of the seriousness of the situation and the need for effective action. This crisis has highlighted the political tensions between Labour Party members and Conservatives, with a strong division over how the investigation should be conducted. Billington stated that the inquiry should be carried out in an independent and transparent manner, emphasizing that there was much more to uncover, as evidenced by the case of Raj Amir, which was reportedly ignored by the police.
Absolutely. For years, there have been people that have been asking for an independent inquiry. It has always been blocked by Labour.
He suggested that Labour leaders, including Angela Rayner and Jim McMahon, were attempting to prevent crucial information from being revealed, fearing the damage it could do to their reputations.
It also goes much deeper as well, because you look at the MPs in Oldham. So Angela Rayner, her old constituency boundaries, they covered Oldham. And the minister under her, Jim McMahon, he was leader of Oldham Council. So if there's an inquiry to come out, this is going to be very embarrassing for 2 very senior members of the Labour government. They do not want this information coming out.
Ultimately, the situation in Oldham and Tameside raises serious questions about the accountability of local authorities and the need for transparency in child sexual abuse investigation. The call for an independent investigation reflects the frustration of those involved who feel that local authorities have failed to adequately address the allegations and, in some cases, tried to cover up the facts. The case remains a focal point of political and ethical debate, and the responses from Tameside and Oldham councils could have significant implications for the future of public policy on child protection in the region. In response to coverage of the case, Tameside Council was contacted for a comment on the allegations, but had not responded at the time of publication. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with anyone who needs to know what's really going on behind the scenes in UK politics.